Cash-a-maniacs.
Geo Gearheads.
Welcome back to the Geo Gearheads episode of 517. I'm Darryl W4, back as usual with Chris of the Northwest for an interesting show tonight. But before we get into that, we have to do our usual banter, Chris, or people will think, we actually have a script or something that we're following.
Oh, we have no script, Darryl. This is an entirely impromptu podcast, except that it's scheduled every week.
We have a script. It says X, 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 X. And then it has a closing, but we can't do the closing yet.
Oh, well, it's the only thing I got to read, so I don't know what else to do.
We've been doing this for we've been doing this for 10 years now. We're almost ready to do our 11th.
Wow.
And I think we're just getting crazier and crazier.
We're just getting started, is what you want to say.
At the crazy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I think we were pretty crazy to start this 10 years ago, let alone keep it going for 10 years. So it doesn't feel like 10 years.
No, it really doesn't. But at the same time, it's like, has it only been 10 years?
Yeah. I can't remember a time I didn't have a podcast on Thursday night.
It just feels like this is what we're supposed to be doing. And we've been doing this for, as long as we've been caching.
Just about. Well, a little bit. Not quite, but close.
Well, I think you're a little closer to 20 years than I am, but we're not too far from 20.
I started caching in 2004, so...
And I was 5.
Yeah.
So we're at 16 and 17 years right now. Soon to be 17 and 18 years.
Wow. Darryl, that makes us old. Stop counting. Darryl, when I first started caching, it was fun.
But it's not anymore?
It's different now. It
definitely seems like more work.
Yes and no. I mean, I focus on different types of things than I did when I first started. So we were, for example, went to Vancouver Island this weekend. We had an event there. That was a lot of fun. What kind of caches do we want to find? I want to find webcams. I want to find virtuals. I want to find old and highly favorited caches. And that just, wasn't my thinking when I started caching so many years ago.
Webcams were a lot more challenging because you'd have to get someone to help you out because you didn't have, wireless data that was usable in the field. And, they weren't archived when you got started. They weren't archived when I got started, but I didn't realize what they were until after they were archived.
Okay. Did you get any locationless caches?
No, again, I didn't realize what they were until after they were archived. Sure. And when they got archived, I'm like, I still don't understand what those are. How do I find one? Oh. Well, now I understand what they are. It wasn't until the waymarks that I figured out what they were.
Well, we might be getting ahead of ourselves here.
Or behind ourselves.
Yeah, that's true. There could be somebody listening, and we hope there is, who's just started geocaching or is interested in getting started geocaching. And really, that's what we want to talk about. Those people who have just dipped their toe into the geocaching waters and wonder, what are all these weird people doing?
Well, this got its rebirth this week because I had a conversation with someone in a Zoom meeting where no one else showed up for our meeting. It's a weekly meeting. So, people were off or whatever. And, meeting never got canceled because we didn't know who was not showing up. Right. So we're the only two there. And it's not much of a meeting on topic. So we ended up wasting some time for other people. Talked for almost an hour about a bunch of stuff. But the big thing was he had never heard about geocaching. When I started describing what it was to him, he got very interested.
He didn't run away screaming.
No. And he may even be listening to this. So, he might be learning about geocaching from this very podcast. But it was kind of weird even talking about what geocaching is now. Because the last time I talked about it in length for new cachers was a very different era, pre-COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and things were different. Social events were different. We actually had events. And one of the things that we've always talked about was send the new geocachers out to events
Mm-hmm.
within those first couple of finds, so that they can get the sense of community and get a better sense for what's going on. Go find a few caches with them if you can, but the big thing is get them out to the events. Well, there's not events every week anymore.
Right.
That doesn't work so much.
So true. I can't argue with you.
Yeah. But
It's just one of those things that you're exactly right. You pair up with a more seasoned geocacher when you first start, to get some of those tips and tricks to, dare I say, save time, because I remember you could search for hours not knowing exactly what you're looking for.
yeah, and the old hiking with a purpose line that I used to love,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't even really hold true anymore.
Mm-mm.
Because most of the caches that I do, most of the really good caches I do, aren't really a hike.
Right.
So I was finding it kind of hard to define what geocaching was.
Okay, give me your elevator pitch. What do you have
See,
in
and
3 minutes or
that's
less?
part of the problem, is that I don't have that anymore. I really need to come up with it. So, it's like, okay, what do we have now? It's a location-based game.
Mm-hmm.
Check. That you have to find a physical object. Well, that doesn't even really hold true, because you've
For
got
the
the
most
adventure
part, you
labs,
need
you've got the
right.
virtuals,
Mhm.
you've got earth caches. So that doesn't
Webcams.
really work.
Mhm. And events. None of those are physical.
Uh-huh. So, it's like you're adding all of these qualifiers in as you're trying to build the elevator speech. And just sometimes too says, also the sport is so big, it seems that some caches are overwhelmed by all the aspects.
And I like to use the term facets. It's a many faceted sport, right?
Yeah.
Perhaps you're not into earth caches, but you're really into geocoins. Well, there's a whole different facet that is
Well, and
different. I'm not going to say odd. I wanted to do that, but I think that might be mean.
it does have so many facets that,
Mhm.
if you're looking for those quick, easy grabs, you have the power trails where it's literally hanging out the side of the road.
Mhm.
Just drive up, swap containers, and you move on. You've got the LPCs if you're looking for that quick, grab in the middle of the winter or whatnot. Then you go all the way to the puzzle caches where it's really, really challenging, and you're not necessarily finding a great cache, but it's a very fun, cool
Mhm.
puzzle,
Mhm.
or just
Mhm.
frustrating.
That
To the
count
gadget
those.
caches, to we've talked about many times, the Lord British caches that take you for epic adventures with great scenic views.
Mhm.
That style of cache, if that's what you want to do, it's just so many cool things. And how do you consolidate that into an elevator pitch?
Right.
And again, it's changed. Most of the stuff
Mhm.
that I enjoy now is very different than what I enjoyed when I was a younger cacher. And those,
Here's GSM times 2 one-line introduction. Shouldn't he have a 2-line introduction? Anyway, he
well, in
says
this case, it's a 3 line.
it's a location-based game like Pokemon Go, but instead of searching out mythical monsters to capture, you're looking for containers that have logs to sign.
Interesting. Well, one of the interesting questions that had come up was, do I have to use a phone?
Mhm.
No, you can use a GPSR,
You can
but you
use a
need
printed piece of paper.
Sure, but you need to have something that's going to, point you to the right location. So the
You
phone
could,
is the best way to get started.
right,
You already
right,
have it.
exactly. I mean, I got started, I printed out a couple of maps with the location and go, "Oh, look, it's in this park. It's pointing right at that picnic table." Okay.
Well, that was only after like MapQuest and a few of the others started adding the satellite view. Because when we first got into it, you didn't even have the satellite views available.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it was you're either going from road or topo maps, no satellites,
Right.
and the road and topo maps weren't generally enough to help you out much. And we didn't have the stop sign, no parking type caches where you could say, "Hey, that's obviously here on the sign."
Mhm. I
You
I
know,
remember early on I was visiting a friend. I had my GPS with me with some caches preloaded. And this is a area of town where it's I'm going to say it's a newer construction, so it's not on a grid. It's all very circular and circuitous, and as I'm driving, I've got my GPS pointing me in the direction. I can't find the road that's going to get me that way. Right? And I've gone or I went around. I don't have directions. I just have an arrow pointing me, right? I didn't even have road maps on the GPS. So, after about half an hour, I'm like, "I'm done. I can't figure out where I need to go to find this. I'm going home." I knew how to get home.
so GSM times two says, and keep it simple. If you
Mhm.
get too complicated, people either roll their eyes or their eyelids will drop.
Yes. I completely agree with that. And that's what got me into it is the simple, fun finds. I never knew this was here.
Yeah.
That
So
sense of adventure.
you need something I think a little shorter than your typical elevator pitch. And it's not, finding Tupperware in the woods anymore. It's not the hiking with a purpose, but I still don't have
So,
a good sense
though
for
those
that.
are facets.
Yes. Yep. But you run into some of the folks, especially, I work with a company headquartered in San Francisco. There's a lot of those people who, as much as they like the traveling and whatnot, don't really have the opportunity to hike. They
Mhm.
can't afford the car or,
Mhm.
drive
Or
time or
or
whatever.
don't have a car. Right.
Right. So it's, they're limited to what they can get to by public transit.
Right.
And there's still a lot of great caches you can do that way. And Starcasher says, my elevator synopsis is a high tech game of hide and seek where people hide containers in public areas and take the GPS locations and publish that information, and then others try to find them.
Mhm. I do use a hide and seek type game.
See, I go for scavenger hunt
I've used that as well.
because
Mhm.
the thing with hide and seek makes it sound to me like you're interacting with other people.
Mm, mhm,
And some people, especially now, aren't really fond of that.
mhm.
And if you
I
go
wasn't
tell
real
someone
fond of that
who's
before.
yeah, this is true. But if you go and tell that to someone in the park that's wondering what you're doing, they're likely to think you're really, really creepy and start calling the cops on you too.
Get that all the time. I'm not even geocaching. Oh,
But yeah, I like that. I just probably swap out the
it's
scavenger hunt for the
a game
hide
of
and seek.
it's a high-tech game, high-tech scavenger hunt where people
Yep.
hide containers in public areas. Mhm.
Yep. Take the locations and publish that information. Then others try to find it. That could go wrong in some ways still too.
Everything can go wrong. Now,
So, it's starting to get a sense of glimpse in the more I'm reading that last part. Find them.
um,
Wow.
I was with Land Monkey this weekend, and we were talking about, how do you explain geocaching? He goes, I don't have to. Almost everybody I come in contact with has heard of geocaching in one way or another. Oh, yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard of that. Tell me more about it. They may not know the details, but the name isn't foreign to them. And that wasn't your case, was it?
No, no. But I do have a lot of the, hey, I tried that when I was a kid
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't make it very easy. And,
Right.
now you've got to,
I tried sauerkraut as a kid, and I didn't like it.
yeah. Yeah.
Does
And
that mean sauerkraut's bad?
a lot
No.
of them were objecting to it because it was an hour-long hike and they found,
Mhm.
an empty Tupperware container. But a lot of
Yeah,
them
you
would
found
love
it.
those gadget caches or the puzzle caches. They
Right.
just aren't into that. So that's where the facets start coming into
Mhm.
play. You have so many different things to keep so many people interested.
Right.
So we still don't have a good elevator pitch for it. We're getting there. I think that one from Starcacher with some tweaks might be the way to go, and you have to probably tailor it more to your audience.
Right. Right. And every audience is going to be different. If you're talking to the mountaineering club, you really are going to push the hikes in the mountains,
Sure.
right? If
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, if you're talking to a friend who doesn't own a vehicle, you're going to push it more to the urban, park and grabs and lamppost caches at the stores they're already going to.
And I was just going to say one of the other things is if you're dealing with people who do a lot of travel for work, now
Mhm.
you can start talking about hey, it gives you something interesting to do to get to know the city,
Mhm. Yeah, you
or
can
just
use
to
it
waste some
as a
time
tour
on,
guide.
Saturday night.
Right. Which I've
So
done both.
yeah, I gave the example of, I had a little bit of time on, the Sunday night when I was in San Francisco and I went to avenge a DNF, and sure enough, there it was. And I actually had the photo that I had shared with a couple of my work colleagues that had wanted to go caching at some point. So, 4 blocks from the office, there's a Tupperware container down on the pier. That's pretty clever one. GSM times 2 says, is it an adult or a child's game? I think it's an adult, and definitely not a 16 to 19-year-olds.
I don't know. There's he's grown up now. There was a young gentleman in the area. He and his father would host an event every month. That was, their thing. And when the cash machines came around, are you familiar with that term?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
So
for those who aren't, it's an organized caching trip.
there you go. In a town, in one focused just on one town or city. He would go out
And
and
a
hide
lot of
several
caches.
in a lot of caches. He would go out and hide several just for that cash machine, and they were good. So, this young gentleman, I want to say 13, 14, 15 at the time. Now he's a young man. Hid very good caches. And we're also seeing that geocaching is a Boy Scout badgeable event. You can earn a badge. You can earn a Boy Scout badge by geocaching. So I think it's very appropriate for children. And
Yeah.
boy, that didn't come out right because the Boy Scouts aren't necessarily children.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's good for young people.
Right. Yeah,
My
and
kids,
you'll get the kids who love going and trading, you'll get the
Mhm,
kids who like
exactly.
the hikes. So,
Mhm,
it depends a lot on the personality types. And geocaching does have a lot for all different personality types. But, for some children it's great, for some it's not. But it really does seem to be more of a adult pastime than
mhm,
it is a kid's pastime at this point. Not that
mhm.
it isn't family friendly, but you know,
My kids would love to go. They would take a shorter hike if there was a container there with trade items. Now, if I'm going out to get a nano or a small, they weren't interested, right? They were interested in the trade items. And so I just kept a bunch in the car so that, hey, yeah, and I would look out for the medium and large caches to take them on, and they thought it was great
Sam, when
until
we
they
went
became
caching,
teenagers,
yeah, when
and
we
then
went
nothing
caching
bad
with our
passes.
young niece and nephew, they weren't as into the trade items, which I thought was weird. They were actually into some of the more challenging caches. They didn't like the walk-ups. They liked the ones that you had to really work for that blended in well, because now it's cool that it's hiding in plain sight and they couldn't find it until they spent, half an hour looking for it.
Right.
Yeah, and we took
Um,
Renee's niece and nephew to an Earth cache as one of their first weekends, and went into a you know peppered quarry. It's an old quarry that they fill with fossils. So you get to learn about some fossils and stuff like that that were native to Ohio. They absolutely loved that. They spent
nice.
over an hour there having a blast digging and trying to find the various fossils.
Um, Pizza Ninja says a good caching experience for me involves trails, food, and fun. Definitely a social game for me.
Yep, yeah, and that's one of the things that comes up a lot is is there an opportunity to play, or to meet other cachers? Do you have events? You have conferences? And you also get the opposite side is I don't want to run into anyone. I just want some time on my own. And geocaching does both. But I did mention the celebration events where we're expecting like 15,000 geocachers to congregate in Seattle and uh, Vancouver area next year.
Mhm.
That is going to be a lot of fun and helps to get people's attention too. Maybe we should move on though to how you actually tell them to get started. Once you got them on the hook, you can't necessarily
Mhm.
walk them to their first cache, which is what I usually prefer to do.
Well, and that's exactly what I would do, right? If I had the opportunity, let's go out together. I'll show you some good ones in the area. I mean, do you really want to take them to, here we have a lot of rock wall hides, and those can be incredibly frustrating, even when you know what you're looking for. You,
Yeah.
you just got to look through every niche in the rocks until you come across it. Well, that doesn't seem like a lot of fun at
Or do
first.
you really want that first one to be a lamp skirt?
Right.
That
You
said,
know,
the right person, that might be the draw.
mhm,
They might want that very difficult,
mhm,
find the little container in the middle of something weird. You know, you do have different personalities,
right.
but I still wouldn't use that as their first.
Right. The lamp skirts for me were fun when I was just getting started. First of all, I never knew those things lifted up,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
never went
It's
and
the first one is always of
yeah.
epiphany.
And then it was nice because, well, you know what? Hold on, we're shopping here anyway. On the way out to the car, do you mind if I stop and get that? Oh, look, I found another geocache.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously, I think everyone is in agreement that the first experience is best guided. That really shows them, what they're looking for. You have to make sure to coach that with, this isn't always what you're going to find.
Right.
It's not always going to be like this. But you do want that first experience to kind of be a decent one
Mm-hmm.
and give them the opportunity.
I'm gonna pop this one up from GSM times two just because he agrees with me.
Because that's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. He says, I'm with Chris on that, accompanying them to some good ones and a lamp skirt to get it out of the way. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I always like the concept of taking them to an average cache,
Mhm.
not a lamp skirt, but like a Tupperware or something like
Right.
that. Give them a lamp skirt so that they get the tic tac of geocaching,
Mhm.
and then you want to take them to something that's more like the truffle of geocaching. Something like a gadget cache, or
Mhm.
if they're into the puzzles, give them a really clever puzzle that they can solve.
Right.
Something to kind of show them the breadth. And it's always a good idea to show them an earth cache.
Exactly. The pickle
That's an
ninja.
awful lot to do, though.
It is. It is, but it doesn't all have to be one trip.
No.
And, it's part of a learning experience. The Pickle Ninja says my Muggle conversion strategy. He actually has a Muggle conversion strategy. First of all,
Good for
is
you, Pickle
finding
Ninja.
yes, is finding out what somebody's potential geo profile would be. I think of it like, how can it enhance experiences they like? Do they like puzzles, beautiful views, etc.?
Yeah, and the trouble is if you don't know the person, getting to that point can be
Mhm,
tricky.
mhm.
And even trickier is finding that out before you turn them off.
Right.
Yeah, if they seem like they're not that interested in the hike and you go and show them some quick parking grabs because that sounds like what they want, then you just discover later that, oh, well, they really do like the hikes. Well, now, you got to go ahead and start over.
Yeah. I agree with taking them, if they like puzzles, but take them to a beautiful view anyway. Maybe it's now around here, the beautiful views are the longer hikes, but there are some great views of the mountains around that are still in the town. So, you've been to there, take them to some of your favorites and tell them why you like this spot.
Okay, but how do you tell them to actually get started on their own? I've been telling people just download the official geocachinger app
Mm-hmm.
because it's free.
Right.
But I warn them, it's a great place to start. If you really get into it, you'll probably want to spend money and buy the app from someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll probably want to spend I don't usually say $30, but you'll want to get the premium membership to geocaching.com.
Um, I will
So
say,
it's not
hey,
going to be free.
yeah, there is a membership. There are apps to buy. I would start with the free app, free plan, and see if you like it. Go find
Right.
some. Just
Right.
explore. You get
And
into
the
the app, you have to sign up, you have to create a username, and then go out and find some. Put that, get that username, put it on the log sheet that of the first one you find, and it's going to be amazing.
and it's going to get you started. The geocachinger app is pretty good for getting you
Mhm.
started and limiting you to caches that are more likely to be found and easier to describe.
Right. Right. More doable. Mhm.
Right. So that's always the best place to start as far as the hardware goes.
Without a
If
doubt.
you have a GPSR, sure, go ahead and use it. Plug in the cords manually, get the cable and download it. Whatever you want to do it. But, the phone is a quick, easy way to start. There's no prep work.
Right.
Just, get started that way.
Well, and I would say typically nowadays, if somebody has a GPSR, they
Mhm.
pretty much know how to use it. They bought it for a reason, right? Rather than just geocaching.
Yeah, but
So,
a lot of them don't necessarily know about the downloading or doing the
right. That's true.
waypoints. They're using
Ah,
it for road navigation or, find the way back to the car.
I'm thinking like a handheld GPS, not a,
Sure, sure. But
yeah.
I've run into a
Yeah.
few of them where they have the handhelds that they strap on a bike.
Mm,
So they can follow the trails,
hmm.
so they can, mark where the car is. They're literally just putting the waypoint in, changing it to the car icon, and they go, which isn't a bad thing to do.
No, that's better than I do when I start out when I go geocaching. I often don't mark the car and go, now, where did I park? Oh yeah, I was near this cache.
Yeah, or they're using it for like the moving map, something like that, just so that
Mhm.
they don't have to take the paper maps with them and don't have to be able to, do actual navigation.
Mhm. Now, several years ago, I was on a trail. Was it my wife? I think my wife was with me. And as we were walking, walking obviously to get geocaches, um, an older gentleman passed the other way. He had the blue Etrex Legend in his hand. And oh, he's what are you doing? I said, well, I'm geocaching. Oh, I've heard of that. Well, you've got a GPSR. You're ready to go. He goes, I just use this to see how far I walk.
And GSM times two is just saying that tracking the
Mhm.
distance and time that they were hiking, biking, whatever, is a common use for those
Mhm.
GPSRs. Yeah, and that's yeah. If I see a person on the trail now with a, GPSR, I generally assume they're not cachers.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay.
It's kind of flipped now because most cachers in this area don't use the GPS, so they're probably out there for something else. Yeah, that said, a lot of the folks doing the hiking and biking, looking to track, are doing it on their watches now.
Hmm.
Either they have the Phoenix or one of those type of wrist-mounted GPSs, or they're using the Apple Watch or the Android Watch or any of the other number of
Yep.
watches out there.
I guess it was just a year ago. I got my father a Garmin watch.
Forerunner.
Nope,
Okay.
can't remember. Um, and it's more of a fitness watch, but it tracks mileage and heart rate and all those things. And he uses it every day on his walk. Yep, I did my 4 miles today, so he's proud of that. But
Nice.
that's what he uses it for, and he doesn't want it attached to his phone, or he syncs it with his phone. He doesn't want text messages coming up. He doesn't want. I don't even know if he tells time with it, to be honest.
Interesting. Yeah, the quantified self thing really did change the way a lot of that stuff works and what people even wanted from it. Hiking now became about just counting steps.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of a weird thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the step counters came out so many years ago, and it seemed like everybody had one. Oh, I've got to have one of those. And yay, I got my 10,000 steps a day in, or I've climbed, 86 flights of stairs or whatever you're measuring. But now that it's in the phone or in the smartwatches, people tend to just, yeah, I'm doing it, but it's not a big deal like it used to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting changes all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we've told them to get the app. I usually now tell them, make sure that you're going to hit those easier, like 2.5, and I have
Mm-hmm.
to explain that to them. Traditional casters are less for your first few. Then, after you found a few, make sure to hit an event.
Mm-hmm.
That, as we mentioned at the top of the show, has gotten a lot harder to do.
Yes, and
But that
at the
does make a
event
huge difference.
make sure you introduce yourself as a new geocacher,
Yes.
right? At the last event I threw, there was a couple, I think they'd moved here from Hawaii. Now, why they had ever moved from Hawaii to rainy Washington, I do not know. Well, I guess it rains a lot in Hawaii, but this rain is colder. Anyway, I would go the other way personally, be that as it may.
They
They were
just ran
new.
out of space to go caching in Hawaii.
That was it. They were new to the sport. They did a couple in Hawaii. Oh well, there's one right over here. I have to stay here at the event, but this guy will take you. And I yelled out to someone, "Hey, walk him over to that cache." Okay.
Nice. Yeah, it's you really need to make an effort as a new cacher.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, geocachers are into the group thing and they recognize each other because we've been to multiple events and we get into our conversations. So if you're a new cacher, most of the time we just don't even know that you're a cacher as well. So make sure that you're going to reach out
Mm-hmm.
and let people know you're a new cacher and you're interested in learning more.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you're getting the screen names, the handles, whatever you want to call them, to actually connect with them and look for their logs on the caches and, as the hiders, because it is hiders as well. Everyone hides the caches. It's not like they're placed by geocaching or some, wonderful aliens that like to place things for us to be entertained by.
I think that's what the aliens are doing, training us like mice with cheese. Will they go here
Ooh.
if I do this? Will they go here if I do this? Let's find out.
Hey, Chris, I think our podcast just ended. Something went wrong.
Should I get my tinfoil hat? It's right over here.
I don't think that helps when you're on the internet.
Oh, bummer. Okay.
That just amplifies the effects. Anyway, wow. So yeah, once they've done a few events, found a few caches, that's when, as a new cacher, you're ready to start spreading out and finding some of the others. But you really got to get that first few under your belt, understand what the different cache types are before some of the, like earth caches especially seem to be challenging.
GSM times 2 says, we still see and hear you. Pardon me.
Maybe they just want us to think that that's the case.
That's right. Darryl, we mentioned briefly Adventure Labs, and I know from talking to people at HQ, Adventure Labs is a huge on-ramp into geocaching because it's truly more scavenger hunt. Go there and, count the number of this or, X of that and Y of this.
And in many ways, it's easier than geocaching.
Yes.
In some ways, it's harder than geocaching, but especially for newer geocachers, it offers, at least in the ones that I've done, an easier way to get started. You don't have that challenge of actually finding the small container in the pile of sticks or whatever. It's not the needle in the haystack.
A small detail on a plaque or
right.
Take us to some beautiful houses and make us look at the sewer cover to see who made
it. You sound like you talk from experience.
What a beautiful house. Look at the sewer cover. Yeah, this is what I want to look at.
That sounds like something that I would do.
Yeah.
Do a whole adventure lab at really wonderful, beautiful sculpture or something. And then, okay, who made the trash can next to it? At least that way, it's a lot harder to armchair.
Exactly. Oh yeah, that I understand why they do it, but it's not. I don't know.
And GSM times 2 says, in many ways, it's more interesting than geocaching. Better places to visit.
Right, because they can be public. They can be even more public than is that the right term? They can be more public than a geocache, right? You're not hiding something. You're not trying to be stealthy.
Yeah, and you don't have to worry about the issues of hiding a container at the location. So they can be anywhere. They can be more open locations.
Right. Like a state park.
Yep. Yeah, and in locations where it's not legal,
geocaches are not allowed, right?
Yeah. So that is a great way to go, but it's a lot different than what people normally think of as geocaching. However, if you're talking to that person that's really looking for something with that introduction to great places, I don't think there's a better way to get them going than the Adventure Labs.
I agree. I think
GSM times 2 says that statues are more interesting than guardrails.
I don't know about that. I found some very interesting guardrails.
I was going to say, it depends on the guardrail.
Because that guardrail with the hornet's nest, I remember.
I was going to say,
not in a good way.
I've seen some pretty interesting guardrails. Now I kind of want to do a adventure lab on guardrails.
On guard.
Ooh, how about a adventure lab of traffic control devices? That is like one of the more obscure things to do an adventure lab on, but that might be a lot of fun.
And they're all wrapped these days, right? So you can get the details. Are you thinking the traffic boxes off of the corner of the intersection?
Oh, no. I'm thinking more, like the diverting interchanges and roundabouts and then you can get into like stoplights and that kind of stuff too. But not the technology necessarily, but the actual things in the roads to help control the traffic.
In this 1 mile stretch of road, how many reflectors are in the center?
Oh, people would hate you so much.
Stay in your car, please.
Oh, do the witness marks on the edge of the highway for the survey markers. That would work so well. Wow. Okay, so for more bad ideas on Adventure Labs, tune into the GeoGearheads every week.
No, not next week. Next week we have great ideas on Adventure Labs, not these lame ideas we just came up with.
I'm sure we'll have some bad ones in that one too. So I wouldn't promise.
Okay.
But we're still going to be there.
Oh yeah, that's where the bad ideas come from.
Right.
We're good at bad ideas. I'm a good bad example.
Yes, we are. All right. We are getting a little long, but go ahead.
Geocaching is a social high-tech scavenger hunt where other players hide containers with a logbook inside and post those coordinates on the internet for others to find.
I'm thinking of changing the other to fellow.
Oh.
So we're fellow players. Make it a little bit more obvious that oh, no. Wrong other. As Chris is editing our
there you go.
Elevator pitch. So, a social high-tech scavenger hunt where fellow players hide containers with a logbook inside and post those cords on the internet for others to find.
Give that a shot. That's not bad. We just workshop that here in front of you.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Are you going to post it?
Yeah, I'm going to post this in our show notes.
Okay.
So we'll have it in there. But yeah, I think that's a great one sentence starter.
With a logbook to sign? Signing the logbook is really the important part.
I would say, let's even get rid of book part of that.
Okay.
So a social high-tech scavenger hunt where fellow players hide containers with a log to sign and post those cords on the internet for others to find.
There you go. You guys can take it, use it.
Yep. And I'm sure
if you make it better, send it back to us.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get a lot more. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to do another randomized show. So send in all of your suggestions, your comments, what worked for you. If you're a newer cacher by far, we want to hear from you and let us know what some of those issues were that you could have gotten help with so that we better know how to give you a hand in the future. So geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com is our email address. Again, that's geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com. And we'll definitely want to share those on our show in a couple of weeks.
That's right. Until then, make sure you check out the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearheads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com or through the many channels of social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniac shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniac shows. GeoGearheads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Darryl Wattenberg. The show's copyright 2021 for one more week by Darryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.